thanks for joining us here on the Retirement Income Source, where it's always going to be about investing for income the old-fashioned way. I'm Tim Sparks. Our show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group, a financial firm right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky, also serving Louisville, Kentucky, Central Kentucky, and Northern Kentucky as well. You know, this show is committed to you, to the listeners. The 20 years of experience that I've went through working with pre-retirees and retirees primarily. Yes, we work with any client that has a certain amount of assets, because that's who we benefit the most. If somebody was to call in and say, I'm starting out, I know exactly what I'm going to tell them every time: stick with stocks and never leave. But for most of you that are listening, reason I bring up income, because income investing is unheard of primarily. It doesn't mean that people are, there's financial advisors, financial planners and stuff out there preparing you for an income plan and calling it an income plan, but the distinct difference is as different as apples are to oranges. Because when I do, we offer the retirement risk report here on the show, and we talk about income differentiation investments and how people are leaving money on the table while simultaneously trying to stay in the market, so that way they don't miss out in case the markets go up. You don't never ever have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about time in the market or thinking, I've got to get in, I'm going to wait until the markets bounce back. Well, you don't know. You don't know if the markets, what's to bounce back in the amount of time you want to. But at the same time, how long are you going to delay income? Or let's just say you're taking income and really you're throwing caution to the wind. You got to keep in mind, income is a return how we invest. I call it the minimum return. You see, in the retirement risk report, we got two distinctions of income. The income that most people are getting, about 99% of the portfolios that we examine, and what they are leaving on the table, or what they could be getting. And what I have found is the distinct difference is a lot of times is anywhere between 65 to as much as 90% more income in what they're getting. Now, if people really understood what I was saying, and I know a lot of times this is maybe something new to you, it's not new to the financial industry. People's always known that people like Warren Buffett and Ben Graham, and so to speak, large corporations alike, invest for income. In other words, they own stocks that pay them income, not just any stocks, good stocks. You always want to own good stocks. Well, most people don't want to be a Warren Buffett, so we give them the best option, which is an analyst, and that's all they do. An analyst specializes in the market of investing in stocks that provide you income. Imagine investing your money in stocks and getting paid to do that. Well, I hate to tell you that companies like Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, good companies, but they're not going to pay you anything to hold them. The only reason that I would have them in my portfolio is if I have enough money to invest for the purpose of holding on to those particular stocks, or even really anything growth like stocks, because there's so much speculation. The pendulum swings so much. You can get a plus 40 and you get a minus 40 in a given year. And, that's not, a retiree's type of choice for retirement planning. People don't like to be in the markets and see their money or their balances drop significantly and then want to know what's causing it. Well, it could be many things that are causing it, right? But when you invest for income, it doesn't really matter. I mean, think about it right now. There's always a buzzword, right? It's going on in the media, and I tell people all the time, it's noise. It shouldn't, has nothing to do with the amount of income, that your portfolio could be getting. Just a nice soft answer from an advisor telling you just hold on, it's going to come back and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, in over time, they're always going to be right. Markets do come back, but the problem is, sometimes, if we go through the recession, or two recessions back to back, like we did 2008 debacle, it took 13 years to recover. Well, that could be eternity for a person that's going into retirement in hopes to have enjoyable retirement, and transition from working where they were okay, before they stepped into retirement because they felt a little bit more gratified, but now they're jumping into retirement and hopefully to be able to carry that baton. Well, you got to keep in mind when you go into retirement, you're on your own. I mean, how you choose, what investments you choose and so forth will determine the outcome, in the long run of how much money you will have. Investing for income, I just know works. I've been doing this for 20 years. The first 14 plus years I've been doing the business, I was doing exactly what everybody else was doing, chasing returns. Looking back the last, 2 years and say, I got to have my money in the stocks. And then all of a sudden we have periods like 2020 pandemic where it drops 35%, or 2008 it drops 25% last quarter of the year, or 2011 it drops 18%. 2008 it drops 50 and 60%. You see, we really don't know about how to plan it if that was to occur. And when it comes to investing, we got to prepare for those inconvenient times. And what are you going to do? When you invest for income, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if there's a tariff out there. They say, it's going to mess with the stock market. Well, you got to keep in mind the dividends that our clients are collecting, they're still going to collect them irregardless of what that is. And that's why I like income. Why? Because I know people are going to be a lot more excited and a lot more happier being in their portfolio. It's not easy. I get it. But that's okay. We're selecting the stocks and the bonds for our clients through analysts. That's all they do every day. Just like you go to a doctor, you go to a surgeon or a podiatrist, or a dietitian. It doesn't really matter. You always want the best of the best handling and making helping you with all your decisions and so forth. It's the same way when it comes to your money. After all, your money is what really makes everything happen. It's the fuel for your retirement income spending. And so, I would encourage you to really step out and take advantage of the retirement risk review. You don't have to become a client to find that out. Hopefully, your advisor does know how to do that. But I tell people all the time, your advisor, if you was to ask them, hey, can you invest for income? I keep hearing about this dividend interest. They can, but are you going to feel comfortable putting it in the hands of somebody that's not what they do? That's not what they specialize in. They specialize in total return and helping you withdraw your money in hopes to get it back. That is their plan. And it doesn't matter whether you accept it or not, but that is the reality because I was there for 14 and a half years. So that retirement risk review that I've been talking about, if you would like to know more about how you are leaving money on the table, the differentiation, and how you can be in the stock market to do this. You don't have to be in other income instruments out there that are probably proposed to you. You can actually be in the stock market to actually do this, because at the end of the day, it's all about income and growth. If you're trying to kill two birds with one stone. Income for the purpose of, that's a problem you have now in the interim, and also inflation into the future. Well, the only thing that does that, the only instruments that do that is stocks and actually real estate, as we know. So if you would like to know more how to know more about this report, call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. And when you call, we will schedule a time with myself. It will start with a phone call, and we will, basically have conversation exactly kind of like what you're hearing here today. Not to make you a client. You don't have to become a client to understand this. But at the end of the day, you're going to know the distinction. And see, it's always about learning. Sometimes it's, when we learn things, we get those ahas, and like I did like 5+ years ago when I decided we were going to give this type of advice because it made more sense than what the advice I was given prior. But again, if you would like to know more about that report, you want to know how that is applicable to your situation, call 888-930-1080. Today, you're in for a treat. I mean, last week we talked about fallacies of retirement planning, and we spent a lot of time into what defines estate planning. When you look up estate plan, what defines it is accumulation, preservation, and distribution of your assets. Well, the distribution of assets is what most people think estate planning is. Not actually. The actual definition is you got to add accumulation and preservation to that, because what good is an estate plan if you don't have the right accumulation to keep up with the rising cost called inflation, or market volatility, which is always going to be the enemy, the number 2 enemy to your retirement spending. And not only that, you got to have income, enough income. Don't spend your principal, so that way you have the edge of your principal having the permission. You're giving it permission to grow. Then I would really, really encourage you to understand what true preservation is. Everybody's talking it, but it's very hard to deliver if what you're doing, and unfortunately, is probably taking every monthly check you're taking out as a withdrawal, and you're calling it income. The financial advice is given today is you are spending your principal, and I'm telling you, like 70% of that withdrawal is really coming from principal, and actually, I can prove that. So, if you would like to know more about income first methods, then my book is always available here on this show, The Retirement Income Shift: How to Get the Most Mileage out of your money. And I share with you, I think there's like 8 or 9 chapters. To me, it's a very easy read, very understandable read about investing for income and getting the most mileage out of your money. And that's what we're out there to do, right? We don't know how long we're going to live, but the last thing we want to do is we get to our 21st year and we're still in good health, and we may feel like we may have another 8 or 10 years left, and we're not far from going broke, because any plan works well in the first 10 or 15 years. It's the second half is what's going to be the most detrimental to a lot of people if they continue to spend their principal. So if you'd like to know more about that, how to get a free book, no obligation to you, 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. Again, we'll mail this out to you if you're one of the first 5 callers. Free, no obligation book, 888-930-1080. When we come back, we're going to dive deeper into the fallacies of estate planning. This is Tim Sparks. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Retirement Income Source, Tim Sparks, and I'm your host today on the Sparks Financial Group, the firm right here in Lexington, Kentucky. Our firm also serving Northern Kentucky, Central Kentucky, and Louisville, Kentucky. And today we're going to be talking about the fallacies of estate planning. I have shared with you the reason I got into estate planning, I don't know, probably about a month and a half ago, and suggest and recommended it here on the radio, just because I'm willing to bet that most people that have a will doesn't realize that a will is guaranteed to go through probate. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. At least the good news is you have that. Well, believe it or not, when some articles I have read about just a will in of itself is most American adults believe that the will is important, but 68% of them don't even have one. I mean, imagine that. 68%. And not realizing that there is a minimum out there today in the state of Kentucky, whatever state you live in, probably more likely in Kentucky if you're listening to this show, unless you're driving through and happen to be from another state. You want to know what that minimum is, because anything over that minimum is going to go through probate. Any assets that are, even if you list anything in a will, it's going to go through probate. And the purpose of that is really, probate is really to prove that the investments, or the possibly investments, bank accounts, checking accounts, the heirs are the rightful heirs, and so forth. And that's the reason why they do that. Probate means to prove. But at the end of the day, what I have found is if you don't do anything, well, believe it or not, a lot of people don't do anything. Well, you're going to have what we call state of Kentucky's estate plan. And the state of Kentucky's estate plan is probably the one that you probably would prefer not to be a participant of, and you probably would, I'm willing to bet, would say that you can probably do a better plan than they can, because you don't have a say whenever they do, because they're going to do it based on the laws of the state of Kentucky when it comes to distributing assets to the chain of if it's your children or your spouse you're married to, or the closest relatives, and that's how it's going to be done. Well, I know a lot of people don't want that to happen, so don't do nothing, procrastinate, sit on it, and Kentucky will put a plan together for you, and it's going to be the one that you're probably not going to want. Well, when we do estate planning courses, I just got finished having one, and had many people schedule an appointment, kind of like we're talking here on the radio and encouraging you. This is what we suggest and recommend to our clients, because I got into trying to find what attorney firm, what group made the most sense for our clients that gave the client more control, and that's what we were after. And I wasn't even aware of what I'm going to be talking about today throughout this show. It's called digital estate planning. In other words, everything is done digitally. Just kind of like you move yours, you may move some money from your savings account into your bank account. That's where you do things online. Well, that's what I mean. It's very similar to that, except it's more, more of estate planning like type language. You got your power of attorneys, your healthcare directives, living wills. Everything is all under one platform, and it's your plan, you and your spouse's estate plan, but it allows you to have more control. And that's the one that I prefer. That's the one I have for myself. And, but the fallacy that I find, and I know this from the attorneys that we work with have told us, they said anywhere between 85 and 90%. It's a shame that the industry, even in the when it comes to the legal professionals, are not doing certain things to the trust. You may have a trust, and you think, okay, I'm going to avoid probate. Ha ha, Tim. See there, you told me will guarantees probate. Well, my solution is go get a trust. Well, I hate to tell you, just because you have one doesn't mean you're going to avoid probate. Because, I've got at least 30 or 40 clients that I recommended years ago to, estate planning firm. And I just assume, like anybody else, that everything is wrapped up in a nice little bow and everything is done. Well, once once we started digging a little deeper and the clients started, one or two of them passed away, their heirs had, and including the spouses, were having to deal with partial probate or all of probate, even though they had what they thought was going to get them out of probate. And if you think about it for a moment, why spend the extra money if you're not going to get it done right? And so that's the reason why we decided as a financial firm here locally that I wanted somebody, I want legal profession. I want somebody that knows what they're doing. This is all they do. This firm has done over 22,000 trusts, been in business since 1985. And, the main goal is get it done. And so, and keep in mind, people, we do what did not happen with our clients is, and if they do it in the very first appointment of a 3-step process to get your estate plan in order and get it done right. And they do it what we call assigning your assets to your trust. That's the biggest mistake that's been made today. And so if you have those, if you have a trust and so forth right now, I would encourage you to take a look and make sure you have actually assigned your assets to your trust. Because if you have not, then you do not have you're not going to avoid probate, unfortunately. And again, I'm not a legal professional. I just know what legal professionals I've worked with here locally, and legal professionals now that are offering our clients digital estate planning. And they tell me that this is the number one problem in trust planning today is not getting it done. So in other words, you kind of leave people on third base and don't even bring them home. But if you would like to know more about digital estate planning, and we're going to go into the ins and outs. We're just scratching the surface right now. I'm going to go into more of the, interactive medical IDs and so forth today. But if you would like to know more about, digital estate planning, we're going to revolutionize estate plan today. Gives you control. Yes, gives you control. And you want to make sure it's done correctly. Then I would encourage you to give us a call, 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080, and mention that, and that will be your first step, and you can come in for a free consultation. And all we're basically going to show you is, if you do nothing, and that's up to you, you can do nothing. We will compare a book trust to a digital trust, and a digital trust, hands down, is superior, but you will come to that conclusion. Then the only thing is what are you going to do when you leave? I mean, that is the ultimate thing, right? Because if you want to avoid probate, then, a will won't do it. So you won't want to avoid doing a will. Not telling you one way or the other, because I'm not the legal professional, but you want to actually come in, and we can give you more about what digital estate planning is all about and what it encompasses, and why, to me, it's the best thing I've seen since sliced bread. So here's the dilemma. Recent article I read, 3 million probate cases open up nationwide in the United States. If you take that number and divide that by 50 states and divide that by 260 working days out of a year, that comes up to 230 cases a day opened up in each state. So just think about it for a moment. 230 cases last week times 5 days was over 1,100 cases opened up just in the state of Kentucky, if that statistic is right. To me, I don't know about you, but that's pretty astonishing. And what it tells me is people are not educated or informed, or they put it off, or they procrastinate. And those are the things you don't want to do, because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily you, it's your heirs are the ones going to have to deal with it. And I'm willing to bet that's probably was never your intention to create financial distress or emotional distress to your heirs as they're trying to distribute your assets and going through this process. Anybody I've ever talked to that's went through the process, it's not something that you just write home about and tell everybody. I can't wait to tell you, kind of like going watching a good movie. I've never seen anybody tell me anything. I have known estate plans, buy wills and so forth that were fairly simple. And a lot of times, at the end of the day, people don't talk about how much it still costs it to get to get through the process and all assets freeze and everything over 6 months. If you own your house, then somebody's got to make those mortgage payments. You owe your utility bills. So in other words, the children, if that's where you're going to leave everything to, are they going to be responsible for all that? And it's probably going to be the child that has probably got the means to be able to do that. And so, why would you do that? I mean, with a stroke of an ink pen, you can actually void that process altogether. And so, 230 cases each and every day, state of Kentucky, 1,100 plus last week alone, and this coming week another 1,100 if that statistic is true. And I'm willing to bet you these articles, all they're doing is just taking taking data from all 50 states. But if you would like to know more about some issues, I would encourage you actually to call the office 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080, and we can have a conversation, and we can share with you the difference between the digital trust and a book trust. At the end of the day, I'm not an attorney. I stay away from legal questions. That's okay. You'll get the gist of it, and then you can leave and then decide what you think is best. But I can tell you right now that most of the people we work with, clients included, they've never seen this type of estate plan. It's one of a kind, very efficient, very cost efficient, and so forth. Most cost effective way. And again, if you would like to know more, call our office, 888-930-1080. This is the Retirement Income Source of Tim Sparks. I'll be right back. You're tuned in to the Retirement Income Source. This is Tim Sparks, and our show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group, right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky, serving Louisville and northern and central Kentucky. And today we're talking about the fallacies of estate planning and the things you need to know so that way you can make an informed decision. A good estate plan means less stress for your heirs, whoever you're leaving this money to. In the workshop that we do, we go over about 20 stars, that celebrities that everybody would know, from Elvis Presley to Walter Cronkite to Red Fox, and every one of these people put their heirs and their family through the probate process. In other words, government intervention. This is high net worth individuals, and some of these cases stayed in court as long as 7+ years, and I do know of one or two that are still going through probate. That's what probate is. The more assets you have, the longer it can take. 6 months, they say, is kind of on the low side of that. Why is that? Because, believe it or not, a will, if you have a will, that's good for you. You at least have some legal mechanism. But a will, even though it goes through probate, doesn't mean that it cannot be contested. Contested means if you've had, there's good reasons to have probate. If I'm a landscaper and I come out to your house and I said, well, we're going to do some landscaping on your, in your, front of your house, side of your house, and so forth, it winds up being $10,000, so to speak. And I tell you, I need $5,000 up front. You go ahead and pay me, and then we get going. Then all of a sudden you pass away. Well, I still am owed that $5,000. So somebody has to pay me out of your estate. So the probate will basically make sure that I get paid and will come out of your estate. In that particular circumstances, more than likely. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with probate doing that, because that's probably about the only way that bill would be paid, and so forth. Well, there's other things that can contest. If you disinherit a child, more likely the child can come back and contest and possibly could win, because it's really you're at the mercies of the probate judge. It's it's government intervention. That's just the way it is. They determine that. You don't get to determine that. Now, I'll give you another example of somebody that had contested my grandmother's estate. They owned a lumber yard for many, many years, and at the passing of the wife or the grandmother, the grandfather had already predeceased her. About 3 months into the probate course, because everybody knows, including anybody and everybody under the sun, because they go through casenet.com and newspapers and so forth to make sure that these people don't owe anybody. And sure enough, a contractor came forward to the probate judge or the probate court and said that they were owed like $8,000 and were never paid through the lumber yard. Well, to some degree, if that could be valid. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, if this person is a true contractor, they're going to know that, and it's since they worked at whatever it was and they bought from the lumber yard, it's easy to to say that this is a legitimate claim. And so at the end of the day, they may not owe a dime to this particular person, and then it's up to the judge to decide. Again, this is a fallacy and a myth out there that people think that things are just going to go away and nobody's going to contest it and everything's going to be hunky dory. That's not true. So it took about a month. Thank goodness. The grandmother was really good about keeping records of everything, and they did find the check. But so it was a legitimate claim. Just come find out this person was broke, and no wonder they were actually asking for money. If they had not got the check, you fill in the blanks. More than likely, they would have had to pay that out. So, and keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, there's 230 cases in the state of Kentucky on average, statistically speaking, according to a staggering statistic that I read. Not only that, but there's over $2 billion annually collected in probate costs. $2 billion. If you take $2 billion divided by 50 states, 260 working days out of a year, it's $153,000 per day spent in probate in Kentucky. And so if you look back in the last week, that's over 750,000 collected, if that staggering statistic is true per LexisNexis. So at the end of the day, your goal is, you should have a goal, how can I avoid that probate? How can I avoid those costs? And probate can be 100% avoidable if it's done correctly. That's the whole key. If it is done correctly. And like I have explained in prior shows, I know over 40 clients that we have worked with that have not done it correctly, and we're making sure that they get it taken care of right now through our legal firm to make sure that that this doesn't happen to them. And you can have a trust and think you're going to avoid probate. Doesn't mean you're going to avoid probate. Maybe. Depends on if you've done it correctly. I'm not saying you have or have not, but at the end of the day, it's all about funding the trust, signing the assets. Changes happen. You got to always got to continue to stay on top of it, like maintenance on your car. So if you would like to know more about digital estate planning, in other words, get it done right, how to get your funding of your trust in 1 hour, and we can share with you interactive medical ID card. You cannot get this anywhere else that I'm aware of. Again, I don't get paid nothing. This is all strictly done by an estate planning firm. Has been doing this since 1985. Free consultation, 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. And when you reach out, we will schedule a time and actually talk a little bit more in depth. I'm only scratching the surface here today on this show. This is Tim Sparks, the Retirement Income Source, and today our show is based on, the talk is the fallacies of estate planning. The things you need to know. There's nothing perfect about dying, and I'm sure you, me, everybody out there would agree. Fear of death is we all have it, but unfortunately, we're guaranteed it, and also taxes, as we always heard, right? Well, we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. We don't want to know what's going to happen, but we want to plan for all of this, for whatever happens and how it happens. We don't know, and we don't want to know, but we want to plan just in case ever how it happens. I'm ready, and I don't want to put our family or my heirs, children, so forth through probate and what I have actually seen. I want things to be seamless, best way possible, and you can do that by actually getting the right estate plan. And in my experience, we have been working now for quite a while with digital estate planning. Name of the group is Integrated Trust Systems, and they're in all 50 states. And this is set up by 6 different attorneys that have different specificities in what they do, from real estate law, corporate law, and estate law. If they know if there's any kind of a trust, any kind of anything out there, they can actually talk about that. They got a whole list, kind of like a huge menu of things, depending on what you're trying to protect. And again, those legal questions and so forth are saved for them. Well, the policies are huge, and what I have found. Some of the things that I have found when it comes to beneficiary designations, most people default beneficiary designations as the spouse is the primary 100%, and you should. If your wife or your husband inherits that IRA, it's going to go to them as if they originally owned it. They can even commingle it in their own IRA. So far, so good. And this is the default estate plan, and it's beneficiary driven, and the kids are marked contingent. Well, what if I told you that the kids, in the recommendations that, in general, not always, but most of the time, the kids, the contingent should be the trust, a specific type of trust. I'm calling it an IRA inheritance trust. I know, write that down, IRA inheritance trust. If your advisor, hasn't mentioned this to you or whatever, I'd call them first thing Monday and find out if they know anything about an IRA inheritance trust. And it's either they didn't care to tell you or they just don't know. But an IRA beneficiary trust is superior, especially whenever you're trying to protect the assets from the kids, because they're going to have to pay income taxes on that money, because it's taxable whenever that money passes down to them. These IRAs are. And, there's a Secure Act. There's a 10-year spin down on that IRA when you leave it behind. But most kids in general, based on 78% of the time, the attorneys that I talk to, the assets are spent or liquidated within the first 18 months of an estate plan. Imagine that. 8 out of 10 are going to say, I want a lump sum. And, that could be huge. I mean, I have clients that got $4 million IRAs and they got 2 kids. And if they leave $2 million apiece to these kids are possibly, very possible that they could take on an $800,000 tax bill, or if you got $800,000 and you got 2 kids, it's $400,000 to each. Not all that $400,000 is going to go to the kids. That's to those 2 kids. They're going to take a federal income tax haircut on that and a state income haircut on that, probably at the tune of about $150,000. That's a lot. And I'm sure it was not your intention for them to go through that money. You probably want to, what would be a great way to be able to leave a spigot, so to speak, because I have two children. I know for a fact they would take that money and run, and I'm going to make sure that they don't take our the IRAs that we've saved and worked hard for. We're not going to allow them to do that. We're going to spread that out, and an IRA inheritance trust allows us to do that. Not just any trust, people. A lot of estate planning attorneys says don't use a trust for your IRA, and to some degree, I can agree on that. Depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But an IRA inheritance trust is specifically for that. And not only that, there's some other protections too. Keep in mind, at your passing and your spouse's passing, your trust, even though you have control of it now, becomes irrevocable at your passing. And now everything that you want your kids to get and so forth, it's going to be based on how you want it to happen. That's the point of it. And it's you making those decisions from the grave. And the trustee, whoever you appoint, is actually going to be the one that's going to carry out those orders for you. So if you've never heard of an IRA inheritance trust, I would encourage you to pick up the phone and call and understand how you can get one flat fee. Get all your documents and everything all in one flat fee, digital estate plan. You cannot get this anywhere else I've ever heard of. Interactive medical ID card. We're going to go over that here in just in a minute. And have your trust funded in 1 day, 1 hour, depending on how quick you get us or get the company that we work with all the stuff that they need. It's a several step process. With the attorney and so forth, but it's the best thing I've seen since sliced bread. You want to know more about that? 888-930-1080. 888-930-1080. You're listening to the Retirement Income Source. This is Tim Sparks. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Retirement Income Source. This is Tim Sparks, and today's show is sponsored by Sparks Financial Group, financial firm right here in the heart of the Bluegrass, Lexington, Kentucky. Today we're talking about the fallacies of estate planning. You know, I have a team surrounded by our firm that we utilize that specialize in certain areas. I can't know everything. All I can do is share with you some of the things within my limitations of what I'm experiencing with my own estate planning, and then what we're recommending to the clients that we work with and in the workshops that we do here locally. I'm going to be doing 20 different talks here throughout this year, just in Lexington alone, and talking about the very topic that we're talking about this today on this show. You know, think about it. Real estate law. I can't tell you anything, but thank goodness we've got a really great attorney that's what they specialize in. Tax lawyer. If I've got questions about taxes, I don't need to know all that. That's the reason why people's got their professions out there. Again, you can have all of these sources, people, with your fingers. All you got to do is just go to the computer, pull it up. This is a digital estate plan. Put on the notepad. I've got a question about this, got a question. This is 24/7, 365 days out of a year. One of the best estate planning, just in of itself, one of the best estate planning options that I've seen out there. It encompasses everything that you can cover in an estate plan. It's all they do. It's all they do. 22,000 clients, been in business since 1985, and you can have all of that for one flat fee, and also one annual fee per year, which is peanuts compared to what it costs to put together an ongoing estate plan. Because see, when you get an estate plan done today, if you do a book trust, you got all the documents, that was your initial fee. You got ongoing fee. And the only way you're going to know what the real cost of what it's going to cost before you pass away and your spouse passes away, you got to know when you're going to pass. You also got to tell the attorney when your spouse is going to pass and maybe who passed first. You also got to tell them whether you're going to go into a nursing home. Also, if there's any tax laws out there that may change, you also got to be prepared that these are changes that are going to occur throughout your life while you're still living here, even after you get this plan done. The plan is like, I mean, if you think about it for a moment, it's no different from changing the oil in your car, your antifreeze in your car. You want to do everything you can do to your vehicle to keep it maintained, right? Well, you have to maintain a trust. It's not a one-time event. And when you're shopping around, this is not like shopping for tires at Costco. This is this is a big decision, and that you can't put this kind of stuff off when it comes to an estate plan, because there's a lot of problems that occur if you do nothing. Procrastination is the number one enemy. And here, just in a minute, I'm going to share with you a conservatorship issue that happened with a particular client who actually decided, her and her husband decided to put this thing off, and then what was the dilemma because of it, just here in a few minutes. But if you want to know more about a digital estate plan and how that works, how it compares to what you're doing, if you want the trust to be funded in one day, not weeks, not months, in one day, then I would encourage you to call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. And when you call, set up that appointment, and we will be glad to sit down and show you the difference between the two. And even if you have one, I hate to tell you, if you have a trust, does not mean you may avoid probate, because I have many clients that I've been talking to. Our attorneys are saying every one of these clients that have a perfect estate plan, they thought, are going to go through probate to some sense. And so you got to be careful whenever you think you're going to avoid probate just because you have a trust. You got to get it done. You got to complete it. Something called funding a trust. We are now talking about conservatorship. This is a case of procrastination. This couple have been married for 65 years. How many of you have been married for 35, 40, or 50 years? To me, 65 years is a pretty long time. Came in to peruse and talk about doing an estate plan. They agreed to do it, and then they walked back out, and we didn't hear from them again till about 5 or 6 months later. What happened was the wife had actually contacted and said, they've already she's already went to one attorney, and also has already been doing some homework herself, and she's not having any luck. And what happened is she called us. This was like the third attempt. What happened is, and this is her story, she said her husband went to Walmart, said be back in an hour, and he was gone for 3 hours. And the guy at Walmart, some guy called, and somehow they must have found some information on him, and called, and just so happened and got hold of her and asked her, it says, do you know Mr. So-and-so? And she says, yes, that's my husband. So the guy said, you need to probably come, because keep in mind, he'd been gone for 3 hours, figured he'd be gone an hour. You better come and get him, because he doesn't know where he's at. He's already lost capacity. What this means is this is a healthcare issue. And keep in mind, 6 or 7 months later, they hadn't a chance to be able to fix this problem, to be able to have the necessary documents called a healthcare power of attorney, and they did not. They had even contacted an attorney prior, trying to, get this document. And of course, the healthcare power of attorney says your husband has to appoint you as the healthcare his power of attorney. And since he's not capable of doing that, you're going to have to go to probate. And this is what they call living probate. So living probate, this was after she had contacted us, and we told her, not us, but the attorney said the same thing on our side. It's the same. So the first attorney told her right, and so she's just getting a second opinion. And so she went to the court, and they do something called, it's a test. And it's based on information you gave about herself, her age, her medications, and so forth. And he told her that she could not be granted the healthcare power of attorney. Now, we're going to have to appoint you what they call a guardian ad litem. You can ask your attorney, whomever, what that is. This is a court-appointed person that actually can make healthcare decisions now on behalf of her husband. The cost of this was her saying this, was $8,000. And there's a fee every month. This is what happens when you procrastinate, when you put things off. These people didn't think, just like any of us don't think. I do it too. But, it's imperative to be able to know, the consequences of decisions we make sometimes when we put things off. My favorite saying is, it's better to have and be prepared, not need and not have. And this is stuff you cannot put off. It's not like buying tires at Costco. So if you want to know more, call 888-930-1080. Again, that's 888-930-1080. We schedule a time where you can come in for a free consultation. I'm not an attorney. There's nothing. We're just going to just talk about the things that I did and what we recommend our clients to do and so forth. How you can get a trust funded in one day, not weeks, not months. And also learn more about the interactive medical ID card. We're going to talk more about that next week, and also 10 reasons why you don't want to leave your kids beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries to your IRAs. I did say 10, not 1 or 2, and much, much more about power of attorneys and the purposes of these and why they're so important to have them. I know clients right now that utilize them significantly. So, well, we've came up to the end of our show, and we appreciate you listening, and I hope you've learned a lot today. Keep in mind, income first, growth second is always the best option. If you want a free book, 888-930-1080 will be free to you, no obligation, first 5 callers. Retirement income book. Retirement income shifts is what we call it. How to get the most mileage out of your money. But other than that, we'll thank you for listening, and we can't wait to talk more about policies of estate planning. Next week, we should be able to wrap that up and go into other financial topics. Thank you for listening.